you're struggling, you're not succeeding. And if you mention this to someone else, they might say, well, that's just because you're not doing it right, or, well, you just need to work harder. But actually, perhaps a lack of success is nothing to do with effort or not being good enough. So I'm on a journey to sustain a career as a full-time professional artist. And as part of that journey, I thought it'd be a good idea to create a YouTube channel, show the world that I'm human, post about my art struggles and art in general, and, you know, hopefully it would all work out. And it wasn't working out. I just wasn't getting any feedback or any views from my videos until quite recently. I actually posted a video after 100 views or so, and it finally got some engagement and feedback. And I want to address a few things in it and just talk about this whole idea of perhaps you not being good enough. Now, this latest video wasn't the first time I had got thousands of views. While typically my videos are only getting like 20 to 30 views a hit, this one about me 3D printing a skull and going on to paint that skull, that got, I think, 3,500 views. The thing is, it didn't get, I think, any comments. It was kind of completely dead in the comments section. So it was actually quite nice to receive a video where it got some feedback. You know, people responded to the things I was saying in it, and that's kind of hopefully going to allow me to move forward in the right direction to some degree. But equally, maybe it was just a fluke, you know, we'll never know. But yeah, the advice when you're putting videos out seems to be the YouTube gurus, they will tell you, well, you need to understand your audience. You need to, you know, create videos for your audience. If you just do what your audience wants, then you can have success off the back of your audience. But what happens if you're just starting out like most people are and you don't have an audience? You know, there is no audience to, you know, ask questions of. And I think that's why for so long I was getting so stuck, because, you know, I just wasn't getting any feedback. And not only was I not getting any feedback on how to potentially develop the channel or do things better, or, you know, to even to know if I was going in the right direction, it's quite difficult, I think, to just be putting stuff out into the world. You feel like you're screaming into the void, no one's listening. You know, you put effort into a video, even if it's just something like this, where I'm sitting in front of the camera, just talking off the top of my head to some degree. I'm still putting effort into doing that when I could otherwise just be watching TV or playing video games. So it can be quite disheartening when you're not getting the feedback and the views. And so that's what I wanted to get. And I did eventually get some feedback, so I'm pretty happy about that. So why did my last video get thousands of views, whereas the previous videos were staying in that kind of double-digit range? Well, I think a lot of people will want to retroactively look at what I've done, and they'll try and work out, oh, it's because of this. You were talking about this, your thumbnail was better, your title was better. Maybe they're right, and it's worth considering that, and I am going to be considering these kind of things moving forward, you know, how to make better thumbnails, better titles, stuff like that. But I also think that maybe the YouTube gods just basically decided to take pity on me, throw my stuff into the wider sphere and try and see what would happen if, you know, I actually got an audience bigger than, you know, the typical amounts. Because the thing is, I'm sure typically YouTube will show my video to, or, you know, allow it to appear on, you know, 500 laptop screens, TVs and mobile devices or whatever. But this time I feel like YouTube just almost arbitrarily just said, no, I'm going to show this to a wider audience and we'll just see what happens. And I think it was luck. I think really it wasn't really necessarily something that you can replicate. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but it did really feel like it was just luck. And I think for that reason, this sort of message in this video is kind of like just saying that you as a person, it's like you're not the problem here. You know, it isn't fair, basically. And I don't think that, you know, you should base your sort of self-worth and sense of achievements on the viewing figures, when the whole kind of system is a little bit kind of rigged, or, you know, set up in a way that doesn't kind of correlate properly. And for me, this isn't a vanity thing. I'm not looking for validation and for people to praise me and tell me how amazing I am. I literally am here just to try and connect with actual viewers and to sort of just start a conversation and to talk about my thoughts, and for that to be useful to the right types of people. And I thought, you know, I honestly thought maybe I'm so weird and I'm not like anyone else, and I'm just, there's something wrong with me, because I was posting and just not getting anywhere. And I thought, oh, it's because I'm not like anyone else. I'm not your regular type of person that, you know, is happily just going about their life, you know, taking it as it comes. And, you know, I'm having weird, unique struggles just to me. And, you know, it kind of felt quite isolating, really. And I kind of realised now that I'm not alone here, and I think there's a lot of people that are trying to do good things. And yeah, you should keep trying to do the good things, but certainly when it comes to YouTube and other algorithms, you know, you got to give yourself a bit of a break and take the pressure off, because it's not just all about you and your performance and that kind of thing. So yeah, firstly, luck is overrated, or underrated, sorry. And there's this thing I've noticed where at the moment in culture generally, you have this kind of optimistic bro hustle culture. You can do it. You just need to work harder than anyone else. It's just like, no, do what works. Go out there, be single-minded, focused, optimize yourself. You know, you can get rid of all the crap that doesn't work and just keep the stuff that does. I don't know what it is about this idea that we're just machines that can constantly get optimized and upgraded, and that should be the point of life, to just find a way to keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. Because then you just feel like you're never good enough, and you do feel like a machine that's literally just analysing the data and thinking, right, this little thing doesn't work, chuck that out. This little thing's not working, chuck that out. But you're a human being, you know, you have problems and you have flaws and you have faults, and maybe you don't want to do the hard sell. Maybe, you know, you can't just go out there and kill it and take what's yours and, you know, win the game and game the system. Like maybe you just want to be yourself, and maybe you want to just hold on to some integrity, but that isn't something that's promoted at the moment. And I feel like it can be difficult when you have this kind of system in place that is very much focused, you know, like the message is very much focused on like self-optimization and less on just being a regular human being. But I don't know, that's just my sort of my thoughts on that. The analytics, bro, check your analytics, you know, again, optimize, see what's working, what's not. And I was looking at the analytics for like the last video that succeeded, but again, to be honest, at my amateur glance, it seemed as though the video kind of was doing the same as every other video. The click-through rate, the amount of people that actually see the video appear on their screen and then go on to click it, was pretty much consistent with previous videos. The ratio of engagement, you know, the amount of comments or likes and things like that was fairly consistent. I mean, if I put out a video, it gets 100 views, then my videos might get me, I don't know, 10% likes and comments and things like that. And this last one, even though I think we're currently up to about 4,500 views, yeah, that's got about, you know, 450 likes / comments, you know, that kind of, it's in that sort of range. So looking at the analytics isn't going to tell me the answers. And again, this is another reason why I want to kind of get away from this idea of feeling like we need to become machines that are using a kind of data-driven analytical approach. Because I think for me, what really was working is doing what I'm doing now, just being honest and sincere. And I think people actually appreciate that. And, you know, that was pointed out on my last video. People would say, I think what you're saying and the way you're presenting yourself is actually a good thing. And, you know, some people were getting it. And I'm not denying that you can, you know, like AI is the perfect example of how, you know, ChatGPT can just analyze the data and come back with something very coherent that makes perfect sense. But I'm not ChatGPT, I'm just a human being. So this is the thing. I mean, 10 years ago, I'm sure if I started complaining about my struggles, you know, it would just be criticized. You know, I'd be considering like a whiny complainer that should just go off and work harder. And, you know, we still have that, like I say, with the sort of optimizing productivity bros and stuff like that are like, you know, stop complaining and get on with it. But I feel like maybe now people are just sick of it. People are sick of being told that the problem is them and they just need to go out and do better. So I'm not saying that you need to sort of not take responsibility for your life. Like, you still need to go out there, you know, sort of self-reflect, see if you are doing something wrong, and then maybe trying to adapt. And, you know, you still need to go out there and put the effort in. So, but I guess the message is, if the effort is just not paying off, you know, give yourself a break, because, you know, you're doing your best. Now, I want to talk about this idea of unfairness, and maybe I'm going to sound like I'm complaining and whining and making excuses, but I think this example of a project that I actually worked on has some kind of relevance here. So I basically went away after having been asked to draw a unicorn's colouring book, and I completed that colouring book. I made it for the publisher. They were happy with it. Not really the typical kind of thing that I would like to do. I kind of feel like it's a bit of a weird subject matter for a guy like me who's not really into sort of the girly themes of unicorns and fairies and things like that, but I did it anyway. And because they liked it, they then said, right, now we want to do a horror colouring book. Think horror films, but as an adult colouring book. And the reason they wanted to do it basically was to cash in on this series of books that had come out recently. They were called The Beauty of Horror. So they became really popular. There was a thing whereby adults wanted to colour something that wasn't just cutesy little bunnies, and that was the go-to thing. So they wanted me to basically be the competitor to this Beauty of Horror series. So they asked me to design a cover. So I went away and I designed what I thought was a pretty good cover. I kind of felt like, yeah, okay, here we go. It's horror, we get the idea. You know, you got creepy little girls and ghouls and things like that. Basically, the publisher said, we don't like it. We think the ghouls, the sort of zombie things in the background, they look like sexual predators, and we don't want to sort of have that kind of tinge to the cover. And I was like, right, okay. So I went away and I changed it, and I thought, right, okay, now it's not so much that the ghouls are the predators, it's more that the girl is the hunter. You know, the hunted has become the hunter. I showed them this one. I thought, okay, yeah, this is actually quite a good illustration. I think it's got a good narrative. You can see instantly, right, okay, this girl's just basically plucked the eyeballs out of these monsters and they're not happy about it. Basically, the publisher said, no, it's too gory. And I was like, wow, okay, this is going to be a challenge, you know, creating a how to draw book where you have to not be gory and tone it down. So I went away, created another cover, and I thought, okay, let's try this one. Again, too gory. I was like, man, have you not watched horror films? Anyway, I had a third attempt. Finally, the publisher was like, yes, now this is something we can get behind. They're still a bit concerned about the fact that there's blood in the image. And I'm just like, oh, you know, anyone that likes horror films, like, I mean, yeah, you do get like your psychological horrors and stuff, but I don't think that's not the reason why the Beauty of Horror series was popular. It wasn't about creating colouring books for people that are fans of psychological horrors and thrillers and that kind of thing. It was more, yeah, we like the over-top cartoon blood, guts, violence and gore and craziness, and that's why it's fun. Yeah, did this cover. Publisher was happy with it. And the thing is, I talk about this other series because I have reason to believe that the artist who did that book or that book series is making bank. You know, they are doing pretty well off. I mean, at this point, just judging by the gist of how many sales and stuff they've got and what I know about the publishing industry, and if they got a good royalty deal, I wouldn't be surprised if they're millionaires off the back of just this book series. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind, maybe not $1 million in my bank account, but I wouldn't mind being able to actually earn a living if I'm going to be producing yet another book, because the last book didn't really pay well enough to sort of completely 100% sustain me while I was working on it. You know, if the book project took 4 months, I didn't have 4 months worth of remuneration that allowed me to live, basically. So I said, no, look, I'll tell you what, this time, can we increase the fee? I want to be able to make a living out of these books. I don't expect riches, but just so that I can pay the bills. So I discussed it with my publisher. My publisher seemed like some good people, but they couldn't afford it, and they couldn't do it. So in the end, even though the cover was good, we agreed it, they wanted me to work on it. I could have worked on it. It didn't work out, the project didn't work out. I refused to work on it for the pay that they were paying me, because it wasn't economically viable. I just couldn't make it work. So yeah, I had to give up on it. And I knew I couldn't make it work because I'd had the previous book that I worked on, and I didn't know at the time how long that would take. It was only after having produced a whole book that I realised just the amount of work that would need to go into it. So it felt like I wasn't good enough. It felt like, okay, I'm just sitting here, no job, an empty bank account. Meanwhile, this other person has, got the opportunity to sustain their living, their life as an artist, and have the opportunities to keep moving forward with it. It felt pretty bad, like there was something wrong with me, but I don't know if it was just bad luck or bad timing. It wasn't that I was necessarily incapable of at least producing sort of a standard to a similar sort of level, but it was just like, if I had got in there first, maybe I would have had the success, but I was coming in second and having to sort of play second fiddle to someone else, and it just wasn't meant to be. So I just want to kind of acknowledge that despite the best effort, sometimes you just can't make it work. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Maybe there is something wrong with you. I always think like you should reflect, reflect and think, right, okay, the world is trying to tell me something. What am I doing wrong? And that should always be your first port of call when things aren't working. But if you spend a lot of time like really meditating on this idea of like, well, what exactly am I doing wrong? And if you're not coming up with a good reason, then perhaps there isn't anything wrong, and it is just a kind of a luck game. If that's the case, then you should be allowed to feel frustrated. You should be allowed to feel pissed off. You should be allowed to moan and complain, and you shouldn't have to necessarily deal with the people that don't know what it's like. Maybe they have had successes. Maybe they're not trying to have a career in this almost impossible art and design space where making money, making especially good money, enough money to live on it at least, is so difficult. I feel like there's a lot of people that are putting in the effort and they deserve to just feel proud of their achievements. So that's really what this message is all about in this video. And anyway, I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in a future video.